Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Sri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridharadhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our beloved speaker for today, His Grace Jayagurudeva Prabhu. And all glories to the assembled Vaishnavi devotees. Jayagurudeva Prabhu, thank you so much for being here. My apologies for messing up with your inbox.
It's all right. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, today is Thursday, the 9th of April, 2026. And it is an honor we have His Grace with us here, Jayagurudeva Prabhu, who needs no introduction. And Prabhuji, we may put the verse on the screen and you may start speaking. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
First of all, I would like to thank you, all the devotees on this program, for having me. Yeah. First of all, I think personally that there is maybe a little bit of a need that I make some bio about myself in this connection, mainly due to the fact that this chapter, the battle between Lord Boar and the demon Hiranyaksha, is very close to my heart. I was initiated in 1976 in New Mayapur because I'm originally from the Czech Republic. The GBC then introduced me to Srila Prabhupada during initiation that here's a boy from the Czechoslovakia in those days. Now we're called Czech Republic. In those days it was Czechoslovakia. And Prabhupada had a broad smile on his face. And he asked me directly if Czechoslovakia was a big country. And I humbly submitted that it's not a very big country. And Prabhupada then actually gave me my spiritual name, Jayagurudeva Dasa, and instructed me directly at that point that I should translate his books into the Czech language, which I took as my mission for my life. And I chose Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic, as my Prabhudata Desh. I'm residing here and since now 36 years. Before that, I was preaching and distributing books in Austria and Switzerland, Germany, France also. And since 1980, I started to translate Prabhupada's books. 4 years after he gave me the instructions, I started to translate the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto. And later on, when I returned to the 1989, there was what we call the Velvet Revolution here in Czechoslovakia, and communistic rulers gave up their hold on the power, and Czechoslovakia in those days became a democratic, open country, member later on of the EU, and separated into the Czech and the Slovak Republic. Anyhow, I had many devotees here who were, I would think, more qualified than I was in means of translating maybe. So I kind of like shared this duty with other devotees. They took over the translation of Srila Prabhupada's books. Nonetheless, in the early 2000s, when I was also employed as a teacher at a public school and later on at a high school, I kind of had a feeling that I should still do some translating Prabhupada's books. But as I said, many devotees, highly qualified Czech devotees, took up the task. So I kind of thought, because I taught small children in those days also in the public primary schools, I taught English, I was an English teacher, that when I left the primary school and became an employee at the university actually later on, I sort of like missed the children, and I thought, well, why don't I just do, because in those days it started to become more and more like a cultural phenomena. Why don't I do some audiobooks for children in the Czech language? So that was a challenge. I kind of thought, well, why not? So I chose the Krishna book as the first thing that I started. And since 26 years now, I've been producing audiobooks for children, for the Czech children, which are extremely, I would say, popular, not only amongst the devotee community, but in the public domain. These audiobooks are sold in the various platforms for downloading audiobooks, and I get some very good appreciations from people who are not directly devotees of Krishna. So to come back to today's reading, the battle between Lord Boar and demon Hiranyaksha, in 2000 and, if I remember well, 15, yeah, that's already 11 years ago, I started to do a series which is called the Beautiful Bhagavatam Stories. Before that, I finished and completely did the 90 chapters of Krishna book in audiobook form, with music, with actors. I had actually, and still have, professional actors and also devotees working in these audiobooks. I have musicians, I have I have my own studio. So this story was very beautiful. And I actually called this audiobook, which was published in 2010, 11, I think. It was called The Prince Prahlad, the story of the Prince Prahlad. And in that story of the Prince Prahlad, the story started with, as we understand, the creation of this universe. I just listened to this whole Prahlad story today, and just to recall the story of the fight between Varahadev and Hiranyaksha. And the story is interesting because I sort of made the whole story of the appearance of the four Kumaras in the context of the creation by Lord Brahma, and how these four Kumaras tried to enter the Vaikuntha planetary region, and how they were barred by Jai and Vijay, how they were forbidden to enter the Vaikunthas, and how they were cursed by the four Kumaras, and how Lord Vishnu appeared, how Narayan, and he gave these Jai and Vijay the choice to either be born in this material world that was the curse by the four Kumaras, either take birth 7 times as devotees in the material world, or 3 times as the enemies of the devotees, that means the Asuras. And because Jai and Vijay were, of course, pure devotees who just were used for this special pastime of the Lord, they chose to take 3 times birth as Asuras. And as we know the story, the first time they were born as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. In my story for the children, I also translated the word Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyaksha, the word Hiranyaksha means the golden-eyed. Hiranya means gold, and Aksha means eyes, the golden-eyed demon. And Hiranyakashipu, the gold-loving demon, right? So in both cases, as we know from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were both very, very much enamored with gold, specifically. And we know in the second incarnation of Jaya and Vijay, they were born as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. And another time, they were born as lovers of gold again. Ravana, as we know, built a city of Lanka full of gold. So this is something which is very much connected to gold. The demons in this Leela of the Lord were both times as Ravana and also as Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, they were enamored with gold, right? So anyhow, the story of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, I kind of like in the whole story, I linked them because in this story when Kashyapa Muni and Diti were thinking about, engaging and having children, Kashyapa Muni said that it's not a good thing. But anyhow, there was some kind of a plan, and they actually had Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu as their demoniac children. But Kashyapa Muni, that's stated in the Bhagavatam, he predicted to Aditi that their grandson would be a great devotee, Prahlad, right? So that's why I made the whole story the story of the Prince Prahlad, because Prince Prahlad is sort of like, the ultimate Vaishnava in this story of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Although he was the son of Hiranyakashipu, he was not the son of Hiranyaksha, but nonetheless, Kashyapa Muni was the father of both Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and he predicted that one of their grandsons will be Prahlad Maharaj. And effectively, the culmination of the story of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha is Prahlad Maharaj's opposition to Hiranyaksha's will to hate Vishnu. And it's like the paroxysm of this whole story of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So I was very much, I very much liked the story of the fight between Hiranyaksha and Lord Bor or Varahadev. So today's verse is from the 18th chapter, which, as we've stated, is the battle between Lord Bor and the demon Hiranyaksha. And in fact, I remember in this audiobook I made for children, the fight between Hiranyaksha and Lord Bor was very nicely illustrated, because that fight was really a cosmic fight, when you think of it, what kind of weapons they both used, and the whole situation. They were fighting actually in the or above the sea of Garbhodaka, so it was a cosmic fight. It's interesting in our Vedic literatures how much stories and histories, because the Purana means very ancient histories of the universe and the various events that took part in our universe, in other planetary systems or completely out of planetary systems, as in this specific Leela. When we compare with our modern view of the world, we barely can travel with a spaceship to the moon and come back. That's about our latest achievement. But in the Bhagavad, we find stories of histories which are far, far beyond our planetary system, far beyond our planet Earth even. And our planet Earth is basically the central point of attraction of the demons, as we can see in this story. And we know that Svayambhuva Manu went to Lord Brahma and he said, our planet Earth has fallen from its orbit to the lower regions of the Garbhodaka ocean. And what should we do? And at that point, as we know, Lord Varahadev appeared from the nostril of Brahma as a small teensy-meensy creature who grew very quickly and became the beautiful, absolutely incredibly beautiful being which resembled a boar. So this boar immediately jumped into the Garbhodaka ocean, lifted up the earth, and now the story starts when Hiranyaksha, who first wanted to fight, as we know, with Varunadev, when he was underneath in this ocean, he challenged Varuna to fight with him, but Varunadev refused. However, he predicted, Varunadev, that Hiranyaksha will soon find an enemy worthy of his greatness, because Hiranyaksha wasn't an ordinary demon. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were the greatest demons in the history of the world. There was never any demons who were as powerful as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. They appeared in the Satya Yuga, when people lived 100,000 years. And they were enormous, they were really huge. And they could travel within the universe, not only to the moon and back with a little spaceship, but they were traveling around the universe. They were practically terrorizing the universe. Mainly Hiranyaksha, he was very famous for being extremely powerful. So anyhow, he found out that Lord Boar secured our planet Earth and lifted it from the Garbhodaka ocean. And when he heard from Varuna that Lord Boar has saved the earth, which Hiranyaksha considered as his domain, mainly because the earth was filled with gold, he thought, this is my planet full of gold. So he became extremely angry. And this today's verse describes his anger while seeing Lord Boar, Varahadev, in this specific Leela. So I will read the Sanskrit. Dadarshatra bijatam dharadharam proniyamanavin agradanstraya mushnantamakshna swaruchoruna shriya jahasachaho vanagocharo mriga. Now, the word-to-word translation. Dadarsha, he saw. Tatra, there. Abhijitam, the victorious. Dhara, the earth. Dharam, bearing. Proniyamana, being raised upward. Avanim, the earth. Agrasdangstraya, by the tip of his tusk. Mushnantam, who was diminishing. Akshna, with his eyes. Svaruchaha, Hiranyaksha's own splendor. Aruna, reddish. Shriya, radiant. Jahasa, he laughed. Cha, and aho, oh. Vanagocharaha, amphibious. Mrigaha, beast. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Here he saw there the all-powerful personality of Godhead in his boar incarnation, bearing the earth upward on the ends of his tusks, and robbing him of his splendor with his reddish eyes. The demon laughed. Ho, an amphibious beast! Purport. In a previous chapter, we have discussed the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Varaha, the boar. While Varaha, with his tusks, engaged in uplifting the submerged earth from the depth of the waters, this great demon Hiranyaksha met him and challenged him, calling him a beast. Demons cannot understand the incarnations of the Lord. They think that his incarnations as a fish or boar or tortoise or big beasts only. They misunderstand the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even in his human form, and they deride his descent. In the Chaitanya Sampradaya, there is sometimes a demonic misconception about the descent of Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu's body is spiritual, but demonic persons consider the body of the Supreme Personality to be material, just like ours. Avajananti ma mudha. Persons who have no intelligence deride the transcendental form of the Lord as material. Once again, the verse. Dadarsha tatrabijitam dharadharam praniyamananavanim agradangstraya mushnantam akshna svaruchorunashriya jahasachaho vanagocharo mrigaha. He saw there, meaning Hiranyaksha, the all-powerful personality of Godhead in his boar incarnation, bearing the earth upward on the ends of his tusks, and robbing him of his splendor with its reddish eyes. The demon laughed, "Ho, an amphibious beast." So it's interesting, as I said in this audiobook, which I made for the children many, many years ago, that Hiranyaksha addresses Varahadev as a beast, Mrigaha, right? So it's interesting that in the 7th canto, we can see that between this 3rd canto and 7th canto, there were so many other leelas. So I made this audiobook, I combined the 3rd and the 7th canto stories, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And we see that Hiranyakashipu, when he saw Nishingadev, he exactly used the same word as Hiranyaksha. In this verse, in the 7th canto, 8th chapter, 18th verse, it's stated, while Hiranyakashipu looked around to find the source of the sound, that wonderful form of the Lord, which could not be ascertained to be either a man or a lion, emerged from the pillar. In amazement, Hiranyakashipu wondered, ho, what is this creature that is half man and half lion? And specifically in the word-to-word translation is written, Mriga Indra Rupam, the form of both a man and the king of the beast, the lion. And the word Mriga is exactly the word which we have today, Gajahashochaha Vanagocharu Mrigaha, the beast. Yeah. So this is the specific nature Prabhupada describes that in the purport of the demons. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we have a verse which Prabhupada cites, and if you allow me, I will read that verse and the purport because it's very revealing. So the verse is in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It's the verse number 11. Avajananti ma mudha manushim tanumashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Purport. From the other explanation of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. I would say also in our context that although the Lord appears like a boar or like a half man, half lion, or like a fish incarnation, he is not a common fish or common incarnation of a boar, nor is he a common animal at all, like a fish, right? The personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being, nor can he be an animal as we know them. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Paramakrishna. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many Ishvaras, controllers, and one appears greater than another. In the ordinary management of the affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, and above him a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is controller, but one is controller by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in the material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller, Ishvara Paramakrishna, and his body is Satchitananda, non-material. So this also can be referred to, in our case, in this Leela, where Krishna appears as a boar, which means that no doubt Hiranyaksha was a big controller. He was a very, very big controller. Biggest demon in the history of our universe was Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, of course. So, but Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, Prabhupada writes, undoubtedly, both in the material and spiritual world. But Krishna is the supreme controller. So Krishna appeared as the supreme controller in the form of a board. And his body is Satchit Ananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses in the Bhagavad Gita. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man nor an animal, the foolish deride him and consider him to be a man or an animal or a beast, as we read in this verse today. His body is called here Manushim, as a man, because he's acting just like a man, a friend of Arjuna's political involved in the battle of Kurukshetra, or in our case, as a mriga, as a beast. In so many ways, he is acting just like an ordinary man. Of course, Varaha didn't act as an ordinary animal. He was absolutely enormous, and his body was very beautiful. And in this case, in Bhagavad Gita is stated, but actually his body is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. We must also consider for the eyes, in the eyes of the demigods, when Varahadev appeared from the nose of Brahma and become greater and greater, but his body was so beautiful. That is the prerogative of Krishna and all of his incarnations. They're absolutely splendidly beautiful for the devotees, but not for the demons, because the demons, they're simply in love with themselves. They cannot understand Krishna, because they're mudha. So this is confirmed in the Vedic language also. Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya, I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. That's called Gopal Tapani Upanishad. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. Tam ekam govindam, you are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses of the cows. Satchitananda Vigraham, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternity. Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of Bhagavad Gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. So in our case, we see Hiranyaksha in the role of an asura to deride Varahadev as an ordinary beast. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore, he is called mudha. For any foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and in his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the proprietor of everything, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. I will continue a little further on. There are many controversies between the impersonalists and personalists about the Lord's appearance as a human being or as one of the incarnations. But if we consult Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative text for understanding the science of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man, although he appeared on this earth as an ordinary human. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, when the sages headed by Shanaka inquired about the activities of Krishna, they said, Krittavan kila karmani saharamena keshava attimartyani bhagavan gudha kapatamanushaha. Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like a human being, and so he performed many superhuman acts. The Lord appearances as a man bewilders the foolish. No human being could perform the wonderful acts that Krishna performed while he was present on this earth. When Krishna appeared before his father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared with 4 hands. But after the prayers of the parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child. As stated in the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 3rd chapter, 46th verse, Bhabuva Prakrita Shishu. He became just like an ordinary child, an ordinary human being. Now, here again it is indicated that the Lord's appearance as an ordinary human being is one of the features of his transcendental body. In the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita also it is stated that Arjuna prayed to see the Lord's form of 4 hands, Tenaiva Rupena Chaturbhujena. After revealing this form, Krishna, when petitioned by Arjuna, again assumed his original human-like form, Manusham Rupam. These different features of the Supreme Lord are certainly not those of an ordinary human being. There are so many impersonalists who deride temple worship. They say that since God is everywhere, why should one restrict himself to temple worship? But if God is everywhere, he is not in the temple or in the deity. Although the personalist and impersonalist will fight with one another perpetually, a perfect devotee of Krishna consciousness knows that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality, he is all-pervading, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Although his personal abode is Goloka Vrindavan, and he is always staying there by his different manifestations of energy, and by his plenary expansion, he is present everywhere in all parts of the material and spiritual creation. So this is the end of the purport to this verse that Prabhupada cites in his purport to today's verse. And also in the Brahma Samhita, there's the famous verse, Ramadi Murti Shukala Niyamena Tishtam Nanavataram Akarod Bhavaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramah Pumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So it's clearly stated, Ramadi Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtam Nanavataram. Nanavataram. So there are so many avatars of Lord Shri Krishna who descend on this planet. It's stated Rama and many others. And today's verse or today's chapter describes the fight between Varaha, an avatar of Krishna, with this great demon Hiranyaksha, who was basically cursed and originally is a great devotee. We know that Jai and Vijay, or the gardens of the 7th gate of Vaikuntha, and also we have placed in our Temple of Vedic Planetarium very high statues of Jai and Vijay in front of the temple. So they're not ordinary personalities, but they are great devotees. We know also from the story from the previous chapters in this story about the appearance of Varahadev and Hiranyakashipu. We know that they actually are very great devotees of Krishna, and they were simply used by Krishna in his Leela. Because when we read the story, we know that Lord Vishnu arranged this whole Leela so that he could descend on this into this material world and have fights, have actual fights which are really like who wins, who kills, very fierce fights. And as Lord Narayan explained to Jai and Vijay after this event happened at the 7th gate with the cursing by the 4 Kumaras, Lord Narayan said, I had the desire to have a real fight until death, but who can I fight in the spiritual world? Everybody worships me in the spiritual world. There was no one who would like to kill me here in the spiritual world. Everyone wants to just worship me, love me. On one of the planets, there's a planet which is the presiding deity is Varahadev. It's a Vaikuntha planet. Similarly, there's a Vaikuntha planet where Lord Nishingadev resides. And of course, there's Goloka Vrindavan, the biggest and the largest planet in the Vaikuntha world, where Krishna appears in his transcendental form as Govinda, and also in his transcendental form as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, and performs the Sankirtan movement. That's a part of the Goloka planet, the highest planet and the greatest planet in the spiritual world. But Varaha and also Nishingadev and all the others, Narayan and Vishnu, they have their planets. We have these markings on our bodies, which we perform every day. The tilak, there are these 12 Narayan, names of Narayan, which we place on our body. So these are all the Vaikuntha planets, and they're unlimited Vaikuntha planets. So on all these Vaikuntha planets, and what to speak of Goloka Vrindavan, no one wants to kill Krishna. No one wants to fight with Krishna to kill him, right? So, but Krishna has this desire to fight with someone in this mood, which is a very fierce, horrible mood, because in the spiritual world, no one wants to kill Krishna. So Krishna arranged this Leela with Jai and Vijay so that he can come into this material world and perform this very fierce pastime of fighting with a great, powerful demon like Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, and in the second incarnation as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and in the third incarnation we know he appeared as Shishupal and Dantavakra, these two demons, Jai and Vijay, right? And Krishna, in all these three cases, he was it in Satya Yuga, then in Treta Yuga when Ravana appeared, and then at the end of the Dwapara Yuga when Lord Krishna appeared. In those three ages, Krishna appeared to fight with these demons in a way which is heroic, chevaliers, horrible, right? Mainly when we think about the killing of Hiranyakashipu, that was horrible, isn't it? And also in the fight between Lord Boar and the demon Hiranyaksha, which is described in this chapter in the later verses, we can see the fight was really, really cosmic. They were throwing at each other all kind of weapons. They were fighting really like, to death. And mainly Hiranyaksha, he played the role of a demon in a perfect way. He really was a super duper heavy demon. All the demigods were afraid, Actually, during the fight, we will read in the ongoing verses of this chapter, the demigods were very much disturbed to see Hiranyaksha at a certain point even prevailing over Lord Varahadev. It's nice to, I remember in this audiobook which I made for the children, Lord Boar, he picked up the earth on his beautiful tusks, and we must understand that the Lord Boar for us, for the devotees, was beautiful. He was golden hued, he was shining, and his tusks were actually also very beautiful. Dangstraya. Here is stated that Agra Dangstraya, by the tip of his tusk. Also, we know that Lord Nishingadev, there's also a word, this word Dangstraya, that was his nails. Lord Nishingadev's nails were beautiful, Dangstraya. And in this case, the tip of his tusk was also Dangstraya, Hiranyaksha. So Hiranyaksha, when he came to challenge and wanted to fight and get back the earth under his own control, as the demons want to do usually, the Lord Boar took the earth very softly and placed it on the side so that it doesn't get hurt. It's a very beautiful scene. And then started to fight with Hiranyaksha. And this fight was really a cosmic battle. I think that George Lucas in Star Wars wouldn't have found a more beautiful setting than the setting which we see in the Bhagavatam in the fight between Hiranyaksha and Lord Boar Varahadev. It was an amazing fight. So anyhow, the demigods at a certain point, when they saw that Hiranyaksha was seemingly more powerful than Lord Bohr. They came and they encouraged him, and they told him Varahadev, they encouraged him, now is the time, now is the very auspicious astronomical conjunction to kill this demon Hiranyaksha. And as we know, in this chapter you will read about it, actually Lord Bohr Varahadev didn't need a weapon, he just gave him a slap. And Hiranyaksha just fell down dead, right? So that's a very nice Leela. Anyhow, this Leela of Varahadev fighting with Hiranyaksha was described in this audiobook which I made for children, and they loved it. They really loved it, the children. And I used actors to incarnate Hiranyaksha, and I also used all kind of sounds during the battle. It was really like, because my idea of doing audiobooks for children, which I'm doing now since 26 years basically, is that by hearing, the children can imagine the scenes. If you do it nicely with music, with sound effects, etc., and it's just hearing shruti, then the small children, also the adults, of course, but children specifically, they can have their own imagination. They can imagine in their own heads the whole scene, and that's important, so that they can have their own fantasy, own imagination, viewing these leelas, right? Whereas in films from George Lucas and all these different kind of videos that you can find here, or even the artificial intelligence movies, we impose our fantasy on the children. They can see it, visualize it on the screen. And they, in one way, this visual effects supersede their own fantasy, and they impose the fantasy of the creators of the different kind of visual effects and other things, be it in George Lucas films or nowadays in those very beautiful, sometimes a little special artificial intelligence or 3D, for example. The fantasy is there for the child or for the adult, of course, for the viewer. It's there, and he has to accept the fantasy of the creator and not his own fantasy. Whereas when you do the audiobook nicely with nice sound effects, etc., then the child can use his own fantasy to imagine these things. And that's something which is important for me, at least as a teacher also, for the children, that you foster the imagination of the children is so important. And I've noticed that the children are thankful for that, because they many of the parents wrote to me and talked to me about this. They said that they can't stop listening to these stories. They listen to them over and over and over again. The whole Krishna book which I made, the children, they love to listen to it over and over again. It's just because when they listen to it, their own personal imagination intervenes, and they can see these things in their own hearts, so it's important. So these audiobooks which I'm making now, last year we made the story of Matsya Avatar with actors and various beautiful songs. And the year before, we made the story of Buddha Avatar, which was also very interesting. So all these stories from the Bhagavatam, the series called The Beautiful Bhagavatam. And each year we publish one new audiobook. So anyhow, this story of Varahadev and his fight with Hiranyaksha is absolutely amazing. Also, that's why I translated for the children the words Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyaksha means the golden-eyed. Yeah? I think there was even a film, James Bond film, which was called Golden Eye. And the demon, actually, in this James Bond film, he was called... Huh?
Goldfinger. Goldfinger. Goldfinger.
Goldfinger, yeah. Something like that, yeah. So even in these films, yeah, the demons say they love gold, This is a fact, the demons, they're very much attracted by gold. I think that those devotees who live still, many of your audience, of course, lives all around the world, also in the United States, but many of the audiences in Africa can confirm that the Western's man attraction for gold is really an expression of demonic nature, right? Hiranyaksha. Not only in Africa, but in South America, we know that in Central America, when the Western invaders came to Central and South America, the first thing they asked the indigenous Indians who were living there as free people, they asked them, "Where's the gold?" I remember when I still worked at the university, we had a conference in Sevilla, which is a city in southern Spain, and we visited one of the greatest cathedrals there, which is filled with gold, which was stolen from the Indian tribes in Southern America, in Peru and Bolivia nowadays. I mean, this love for gold is something which is really demoniac, and it's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam and many places how the demons are attracted to gold. That's why we have the name Hiranyaksha, the golden-eyed, and Hiranyakashipu, the one who loved gold and soft cushions. Kashipu means soft cushions, but mainly gold, Hiranyaksha, right? So that's what I would like to say about the fight between Lord Boar and Hiranyaksha. But there is in the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes also that demons cannot understand the incarnations of the Lord. They think that his incarnation is a fish or boar or tortoise or big beasts only. They misunderstand the body of the Supreme Personality of God, even in his human form, and they deride his descent. And now, in the Chaitanya Sampradaya, there is sometimes a demonic misconception about the descent of Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu's body is spiritual, but demonic persons consider the body of the Supreme Personality to be material, just like ours. So I was thinking, well, where is this? How can I find this story? But I have actually, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I read this. So I may maybe read this nice Leela from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which describes what Prabhupada refers here to those who are mildly said a little bit of a demonic mentality, to think that the body of Lord Nityananda is material. And this is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, 5th chapter, and it starts with verse 161. I will just read the English because I don't want to take much of the time. Lord Nityananda Prabhu had a servant named Sri Minaketan Ramadas, who was a reservoir of love. At my house, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami speaks on his own behalf now. At my house there was Sankirtan day and night, and therefore he visited there, having been invited. Absorbed in emotional love, he sat in my courtyard, and all the Vaishnavas bowed down at his feet. In a joyful mood of love of God, he sometimes climbed upon a shoulder of someone offering obeisances, and sometimes he struck others with his flute or mightily slapped him. That's a beautiful description. When someone saw the eyes of Minaketan Ramadas, tears would automatically flow from his own eyes, for a constant shower of tears flowed from the eyes of Minaketan Ramadas. Sometimes there were eruptions of ecstasy like kadamba flowers on some parts of his body, and sometimes one limb would be stunned while another would be trembling. Whenever he shouted aloud the name Nityananda, the people around him were filled with great wonder and astonishment. One respectable Brahmana named Sri Gunarnava Mishra was serving the deity. When Minaketan was seated in the yard, this Brahmana did not offer him respect. Seeing this, Sri Ramadas became angry and spoke. Here I find the second Romaharshan Sutta who did not stand to show honor when he saw Lord Balaram. After saying this, he danced and sang to his heart's content, but the Brahmana did not become angry, for he was then serving Lord Krishna. In the purport, Prabhupada writes the following. Minaketan Ramadas was a great devotee of Lord Nityananda. When he entered the house of Krishnadas Kaviraj, Gunarnava Mishra, the priest who was worshipping the deity installed in the house, did not receive him very well. A similar event occurred when Romaharshan Sutta was speaking to the great assembly of sages at Naimisharanya. Lord Baladev entered the great assembly, but since Romaharshan Sutta was on the Vyasasan, he did not get down to offer respects to Lord Baladev. So we see even this in Krishna Lila, there was Romaharshan Sutta who disrespected Baladev. The behavior of Gunarnava Mishra indicated that he had no great respect for Lord Nityananda. And this idea was not at all palatable to Minaketan Ramadas. For this reason, the mentality of Minaketan Ramadas is never deprecated by devotees. Now the next verse. At the end of the festival, Minaketan Ramadas went away offering his blessings to everyone. At that time, he had some controversy with my brother. And this continues the story of Lord Nityananda. My brother had firm faith in Lord Chaitanya, but only a dim glimmer of faith in Lord Nityananda. Knowing this, Sri Ramadas felt unhappy in his mind. I then rebuked my brother. These two brothers, I told him, are like one body. They are identical manifestations. If you do not believe in Lord Nityananda, you will fall down. And now we see, if you have faith in one but disrespect the other, your logic is like the logic of accepting half a hen. What is that? Ardha kukuki nyai, the logic of accepting half of a hen. That's a very nice, Prabhupada many times described this, Ardha kukuti nyai, the logic of accepting half of a hen. This is a logic which describes the man who is very miserly and he keeps on feeding his chicken, right, or a hen, and the chicken delivers eggs to him naturally because it's fed. But at a certain point, this miserly personality thinks, oh, why should I feed this hen so that I can get the eggs? I will stop feeding the hen and then I'll just take the hen. I won't give him anything to eat. So that's the logic of accepting half of a hen, which means that if we are miserly and we are limited in our knowledge and we don't have enough spiritual understanding, we may understand that Lord Chaitanya is the only Supreme Personality of Godhead and Lord Nityananda not. If you have faith in one but disrespect the other, your logic is like the logic of accepting half a hen. And the next verse, it would be better to be an atheist by slighting both brothers than a hypocrite by believing in one and slighting the other. Thus Sri Ramadas broke his flute in anger and went away, and at that time my brother fell down. I have thus described the power of the servants of Lord Nityananda. Now I shall describe another characteristic of his mercy. And as we will read on, this is this very intimate story of Lord Nityananda appearing in the dream of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and guiding him to go to Vrindavan. So actually, Lord Nityananda and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami had a very special personal relationship. Okay, so now just to conclude, I would like to describe from the Bhagavad Gita the characteristics of a demon, just that we know who we are talking about. It's the verse number 4 from Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter. Dambodharpa bimanascha krodha purushameva cha agyanam cha bijatasya partha sampadam asurim. Translation. Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These are qualities belonging to those of demonic nature, or son of Pritha. In the purport, Prabhupada writes, in this verse, the royal road to hell is described. The demoniac want to make a show of religion and advancement in spiritual science, although they do not follow the principles. They are always arrogant or proud in possessing some type of education or so much wealth. They desire to be worshipped by others and demand respectability, although they do not command respect. Over trifles, they become very angry and speak harshly, not gently. They do not know what should be done and what should not be done. They do everything whimsically according to their own desire, and they do not recognize any authority. These demonic qualities are taken on by them from the beginning of their bodies in the wombs of their mothers. And as they grow, they manifest all these inauspicious qualities. So this is a description of how the demons, how Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, who played the roles of demons, they played the roles of demons perfectly. They actually manifested this pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. Yeah, these are the qualities of the asuras, asura bhav. Yeah? So anyhow, just to end my talk now, Hiranyaksha manifested this pride and arrogance perfectly, and his anger and harshness were enormous. So this is a lesson for us that we should be very, very careful not to manifest in any way or try to get rid of these demonic attributes. We should not be pride. We should not be arrogant. We should not be conceitful. Conceitful means someone, the definition of the word conceit is that one thinks of himself as a very important personality. The world cannot work without me. You know, the world will go to. Prabhupada once gave a nice a description of what conceit means. He said, the presidents, you see this in Africa so much, that presidents, they say, without me, this country, whatever country in Africa, will go to hell. And Prabhupada said, well, he went to hell, but the country remained. He specifically spoke this about Nixon, the President Nixon, who said that America will go to hell without me, but he went to hell. And all these people who are now leading our countries everywhere in the world, practically speaking, without any exception, we're living in a hellish world, you know. So it's managed by demons, by asuras, you know, and they think, you know, without me, America will go to hell, but they will go to hell and America will remain, you know. That is a fact. Anger. We should get rid of this anger. Krishna describes in his Bhagavad Gita very much the problem of anger, you know, that once one contemplates the objects of the senses, one develops attachment to them. From that attachment, when it's unfulfilled, anger arises, right? So this anger is caused, basically, as Krishna describes, by us desiring to enjoy this material world. And if we can't, then we become angry. And harshness, to be harsh with our partners, with our spouses, to be harsh with our children, to be harsh with people in general, or harsh with animals. That's something which is not very nice, demonic. And of course, the word agyanam here is stated ignorance. And ignorance in this connection is not the ignorance which is generally conceived when we do not know some academic subjects, or we don't know how to count, or we're like, you know, materialistic people think that ignorance is something when you don't know what's going on in the world, when you do not know who is who, and when you do not know some technical details, how things work, then it's ignorance. But in this connection, Ajnana means the ignorance which is described by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita also, no? Which means the ignorance to understand that I'm not the body. That's the greatest ignorance, is that we're thinking that we are this material body. That's specifically for the demons. So these qualities belong to those of demonic nature. Okay? So I think this is about all. I just wanted maybe just a small intrusion about Lord Nityananda. And specifically, there's a verse in the Mahavaraha Purana, interestingly enough, which is quoted in the purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita in the 4th chapter also. All the varied expansions of the personality of Godhead are transcendental and eternal, and all of them repeatedly descend to all the different universes of the material creation. Their bodies, composed of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, are everlasting. There is no chance of their decaying, for they are not creations of this material world. Their forms are concentrated spiritual existence, always complete with all spiritual qualities and devoid of material contamination. The infallible personality of Godhead, this is from the Narula Pancharatra, can manifest his body in different ways according to the different modes of worship, just as the Vidura gem can manifest itself in various colors such as blue and yellow. Each incarnation is distinct from all the others. This is possible by the Lord's inconceivable potency, by which he can simultaneously represent himself as one, as various partial forms, and as the origin of these forms. Nothing is impossible for his inconceivable potencies. So I think we'll end here. And if there are any questions, comments, or if there was someone wants to add something to what I've said, I would be happy to hear. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful delivery of Sri Bhagavatam Katha. Dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, reflections, realizations you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked on mute to ask your question or share your reflections. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I have this question. Thank you so much. Actually, you spoke the way a teacher usually speaks. You were teaching instead of like instructing, which is very beautiful. You give why certain things happened and things like that. That is very beautiful. But I have this question, and the question arises from another Sangha I belong to. We had a discussion. We studied the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and a question was asked, and we did not have a very concrete is also related to the topic we're discussing here. And that is one, Diti knew that she is having these twins, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu. And she knew that they're going to be very powerful demons. And so she kept the pregnancy for 100 celestial years. That's what we heard. And I don't know if I'm wrong, but I do believe that Diti also knew that these originally were gatekeepers of the Lord. And they did not want to spend too much time in the material world. And that is why they opted to come as demons. So they only come for 3 lifetimes instead of 7. Now, if Diti knew all this, why did she increase their experience in this material world for another 100 celestial years when they did not want to? I mean, Jai Vijay did not want to spend too many years in the material world. A parallel situation to that is Nityananda and Gauranga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya wanted to come and live a life of a devotee. He didn't want to come as the Supreme Lord. He wanted to come as a devotee. And of all beings, Lord Nityananda knows better than everybody else. But Lord Nityananda was never relating with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a devotee. He was always relating with him as the Supreme Lord. And I also conjectured during that questioning that, well, if Nityananda should be blamed or accused of not letting the Supreme Lord experience his life as a devotee, then we should blame Advaita Acharya also, because Advaita Acharya also didn't relate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a devotee. He related with him as the Supreme Lord. So in the gist, my question is, why certain times, even though we know why certain things are to be done, we still prolong it to make it seem like we are refuting what is supposed to be done? I don't know if you get my long, winding questioning. Prabhuji.
Well, I understand the question, of course, but well, from my point of view, I understand the question, definitely. However, I do not understand the purpose of the question. In other words, the fact that Diti was trying to conceal her pregnancy or keep her pregnancy as long as possible, that they do not manifest these demonic qualities, because naturally the embryos of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, who are twins, first came out Hiranyaksha. If I remember well, Hiranyakashipu came first, and then came Hiranyaksha, or maybe I'm wrong. But nonetheless, the fact of the matter that she was so concerned with her fault that she was trying to sort of like, postpone the catastrophe by keeping these embryos in her body concealed from the world so that they don't manifest. She was ashamed. Naturally, she was ashamed. As I've stated also at the start, Kasyapa Muni, he preached to her. He said, look, we've made a mistake. Yes, we had neglected the rules and regulations of producing child. We chose the wrong time, the wrong site for conceiving, and then Kasyapa Muni preaches very nicely to Diti that don't worry, the grandchild, one of our grandchildren, will be a great devotee. And he glorifies in those verses before they were born, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, he glorifies Prahlad Maharaj in such a nice way that I guess that at a certain point, the idea of Diti would be that she would calm down, that she would be pacified from creating a disturbance, because ultimately this is Krishna's Leela, and mainly the fact of the matter is that one of their grandchildren will be such a great Vaishnava, the whole universe will glorify him, although he was born, Prahlad Maharaj was born of a demonic father, Hiranyakashipu. He was such a great devotee, and the way Kasyapa Muni glorified him and predicted his greatness, I guess at that point, his mother, the mother Diti, she understood that she cannot block Krishna's Leela, right? Now, as far as you were speaking about Lord Chaitanya and his relationship with Lord Nityananda, and also his relationship with Sri Advaita Acharya, that is something which is understandable only if one sees the complete Leela of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifesting in this world. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was mainly in his time when he decided to take sannyas, he was very much a pandit. But when he took sannyas, he didn't want to become a sannyasi although he was initiated into the impersonal, not Mayavadi, but the impersonalistic tradition. He was always eager to chant the holy names. And his relationship with Lord Nityananda, it was brotherly, as I understand it from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Although Lord Nityananda and specifically Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were always considering Lord Chaitanya as their master and their savior, specifically Advaita Acharya was in this connection very much wanting to have a different relationship with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu than with, I would say, with other devotees. He always just simply worshipped Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At certain points, they had very friendly and collegial, transcendental, ecstatic relationships, leelas. Yeah. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes both friendly relationships, brotherly relationships, and more, I would say, more official relationships as the worshipable and the worshipped. So, and this is Leela, and it's difficult to give one's opinion on Leelas, just like you cannot give an opinion on the fact that Diti withheld for 100 celestial years the appearance of the two demons, and that Lord Nityananda withheld his, I would say, brotherly feelings and expressed more his feelings of being the servant of Lord Chaitanya. Leela is something which is understood by most advanced Vaishnavas.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji. My question stems from at least being a devotees, but in general, everybody faces this, but being devotees in general, oftentimes there is a conflict of what to do, what not to do. And like you rightly said, these are pastimes of the Lord. And to me, as a conditioned soul, I do not find any fault in Jai Vijay's action, stopping the four Kumaras from entering the Vaikuntha planet. If anything at all, I may say I find fault with the Kumaras of how they harshly cursed Jai Vijay. But we understand the Supreme Lord was the one who instigated all this. Now, Lord Chaitanya wanted to taste being a devotee. When he was addressed as the Supreme Lord, he will he will block his ears. But Lord Nityananda was always relating with him as his Supreme Lord. And in fact, like we read from the purport, where Srila Prabhupada is saying some from Chaitanya Sampradaya consider Lord Nityananda as, excuse me, say, ordinary soul. And so if Lord Nityananda had not dealt with Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Lord, then in our world of today, people wouldn't accept Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Lord. So there was the necessity that Nityananda related with Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Lord. Yet, the Supreme Lord himself didn't want to be treated that way. And so that is the reason why I was asking this question, where we have this conflict of, okay, this is the mood of my Lord. This is how he wants to be treated. But at the same time, I also know that that is not the way he should be treated. And so in our own situation as devotees, sometimes we also come to a crossroad where something is to be done. And at the same time, we also realize that if we did it the way it's supposed to be done, it's going to lead into trouble. So we want to do something else. And that's why I was asking, when there is conflict, what do we do?
So,
conflict to do what not to do.
oh, to be or not to be, that is the question. Or
Yeah.
to do or not to do, that is the question. Well, anyhow, I understand the point in this connection that we are several times in our life challenged by circumstances to make decisions. And these decisions sometimes are contradictory. We make a decision which we consciously know it's not a good decision, but we nevertheless take the path which we have just made a decision for. In this connection, it comes to my mind lately, I've listened to one of Prabhupada's lectures, where Srila Prabhupada clearly says that if we have a pinch of desire in this world to stay in this material world and be the enjoyers, if there was Prabhupada even uses this word pinch of desire, like nothing, just a little bit of desire that we have, which is separate from the desire of the Supreme Lord, which is clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Gurudeva Prabhu, my revered scholarly Vaishnava devotee, he spoke about it in one of your talks some time ago, not too long ago, that the desire of the Lord is love, that we love him. Garuda Prabhu stated this famous verse, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evashyasi satyamte tatijane priyosime. Priyosime means that you are so dear to me, O Arjuna, because you are so dear to me. Pratijane priyosime, then you will come to me because you are so dear to me. And what does he want? Manmana, you think of me. Madbhakto, you become my devotee. Madhyaji, you worship me. Mam namaskuru, you offer obeisances. Mam evaishasi satyamte, and I will, because you are so dear to me, priyosime, I will free you from this material existence. Do not bother. Then he says in the next verses, of course, this famous Sarva Dharman Parityaja verse. So anyhow, when we have a pinch of desire to do something which is not connected with Krishna, Krishna, Prabhupada states in this lecture, Krishna allows us to do it, and he arranges that we can fulfill that desire. He loves his devotees so much that if a devotee has a pinch of desire, he can fulfill his desire. Krishna will allow him to fulfill his desires. In general, sometimes I remember one of my godbrothers who was suffering very much from the onslaughts of the illusory energy Maya. He he asked me, "Why does Krishna do this to me? Why does Krishna do this to me? Why doesn't he allow me? Why doesn't he remove all these material desires from my mind that I have to suffer in this world from illusion and thinking that I'm enjoying although I'm suffering? Why does Krishna do this to me?" Because as long as we have a pinch of desire, we have to remain in this material world. So in general, the whole method of devotional service, bhakti yoga, is to get rid of material desires. That is a fact. That Prabhupada wrote when he was under Jaladuta. He wrote that these famous verses, Nasta praeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. That's those verses where it's described that the knot of material attachment becomes loosened by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by serving the Bhagavata Sevaya, serving the Bhagavats, that all the inauspicious things from the heart, they disappear. Nityam, provided that these activities are constantly being practiced. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Tada rajastamo bhavo kamada lobadascha is stated in the Bhagavatam. Tada rajastamo bhavo. These tama, rajas and tamas, they disappear from the heart, and one becomes fixed then in devotional service. Yeah? So it's a process. However, we are sometimes confronted with the choices: should I or shouldn't I do? To desire or not to desire, to be or not to be, that is the question, as the famous saying from Shakespeare goes, yeah? To be or not to be a devotee of Krishna, that is the question. We have this question sometimes, particularly in times of crisis in our life, particularly when you are, I would say, plagued by doubt. This is a problem that we all have because we are conditioned souls, as you have properly stated. We are conditioned souls. So as conditioned souls, we are in doubt many times. Prabhupada used to say, in doubt, don't. In doubt, don't. So in doubt, we shouldn't act in general if we have doubts. But we are plagued by doubts, and sometimes the doubts are created by the external circumstances. For example, in our ISKCON movement, we may have some crisis, we may have some problems with various issues, and that can create a doubt in our mind. We have had experiences in our movement with authorities becoming implicated in activities which were not in line with Vaishnava behavior, and we become doubtful of that. Yeah, so we have so many doubts that can come. In addition to that, come of course the fact that we are living in a world which is dominated by demonic information, by demonic science, by demonic philosophies, all kind of atheistic propaganda which is going around. Yeah, I mean, that creates doubts, and we are sometimes confronted with decisions. Should I accept this? Is it a fact? Or no, or maybe it's an illusion. Maybe it's just mythology. This whole story with Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and this all stories. And like in India, for example, many people are surprised that we are taking these Vedas and these stories from the Bhagavatam very seriously as being reality. For them, it's mythology, right? And of course, to that we add the Indologists in the 18th and particularly in the 19th century and 20th century, of course, also, who have claimed that by analyzing all the Sanskrit texts, etc., 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 all these histories of the Puranas have been composed sometimes in the early 2000s, I mean BC, before Christ, just that they weren't written by Vyasa, etc., etc., etc. There's so many doubts that can arise in our minds by being confronted with these opinions and relative truths, which we find abundantly in our literatures and in our surroundings, in our studies. So it's important to always, and that is my personal experience, I must say. I'm very honest in this connection, that I kind of find myself very, very much like a child holding on to the hand of my father, and I just simply remain faithful to Srila Prabhupada in this connection, that whatever he wrote in his books, whatever he spoke about, etc., I find that for me relevant, and other things which are not in Prabhupada's books, in that connection, I'm quite adamant. I'm not very much concerned with them as being important for me in my spiritual life. Otherwise, I become bewildered, So Prabhupada also warned us that we shouldn't read too many books, even about these pastimes from other shastras, because then we may become bewildered and think, oh, well, this shastra says like that, that shastra says like this, and who's right? So Prabhupada once stated emphatically, for some people it will be, of course, shocking, but Prabhupada once said, my Guru Maharaj, right or wrong, he was always right for me. So I have a very similar attitude towards all these leelas which are described in our books, and all the philosophy which is described in our books, and all the scientific information which we have from the Bhagavad about the various aspects of our universe and of the creation, etc., etc. So that's about all I can say.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you for the explanations to my questions. But through the eyes of the scriptures and from other advanced and senior devotees like your humble self, when you speak, what I'm seeing is that it is very difficult to be a devotee of Krishna. Very difficult. In the sense that we read from the scriptures, Jai Vijay, most definitely on their own wouldn't have wanted to come to the material world. But because the Supreme Lord willed it, they had to comply. And we read the scriptures, and sometimes we read as if, like you were saying, some people think it's just a mythology, but it's not a mythology. It's real. Like, to me, all the arguments and the reasons Arjuna gave to Krishna for not wanting to fight were all legitimate. Yet Krishna said, no, that is not my plan. And so Arjuna had to surrender to Krishna. And I'm just asking each and everyone here, if you were asked to fight your own preceptor, your own uncles, your own relatives, even in our situation, when you say something verbally which is offensive, you will feel in your own heart how heavy it is. Now you have to fight these people and kill them. So to me, those of us who are still struggling, who still have some sort of connection with our material connections, It is very difficult. The only way is to pray for the grace and the mercies of the Lord, that we are not confronted with so much hard and harsh choices to make. Because if we have to make such harsh choices, most oftentimes we're not going to be on the side of Krishna. So that is just my understanding of how difficult it is serving Krishna, especially if you are still influenced by the material energies like I am. And I'm thankful to Guru and Krishna that oftentimes I do not have hard choices to make. That is thanks to Guru and Krishna for treating me that way, because they know that most likely if I'm confronted with such hard choices, I may not be a devotee. So all in all, I'm praying that the Supreme Lord handles us in such a way that we do not turn our back towards him. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah. No, I understand your point, and I'm very much appreciative of the fact that you are so much concerned of being a devotee and not turning your back on Krishna. That you're very sincere and in this connection, and I do understand that it's difficult to accept some specific situations. You may remember, of course, from the Mahabharata how Yudhishthira Maharaj refused Krishna's order bluntly when Krishna told him, look, you have to say a lie, otherwise we cannot kill this Drona. If you refuse to do this, no one can kill Drona. Drona can be killed only if he's shocked by the death of his son. And Yudhishthira just simply said, I cannot do it. I'm Dharmaraj after all, I'm the guardian of Dharma, and telling a lie is something which is impossible. So we have this situation. He basically turned his back on Krishna in this connection. So that then, as we know from the Mahabharata, Krishna solved the situation in the sense by having an elephant who was also called Ashvatthama killed. And when Yudhishthira loudly declared that Ashvatthama, the elephant, is dead, when he said Ashvatthama, and as soon as he said the elephant, Lord Krishna and others blew their conch shells. So what Drona heard is Ashvatthama is dead, right? And at that point, he could be killed, which was in the Battle of Kurukshetra something which was unfair from the mundane point of view. And as we know from this Mahabharata story, then Yudhishthira actually didn't comply, but still the effect was there. But unfortunately, Yudhishthira had to suffer some reactions for his refusing Krishna's order. But we should not extrapolate. This is my point. We should not extrapolate stories from the Shastras, from the Smriti, Shruti, Purana, and extrapolate it to our personal situation. That is very dangerous. That is called in one way conceit also. To be very much conceitful means that we're very much self-conscious, that we are concentrating on ourselves as being extremely important. Prabhupada once stated something which I never understood what it really meant. But Prabhupada was so humble, so super duper humble, that he spoke once, he said to devotees that we should consider ourselves as non-entities, which was something which was amazing for our materialistic lifestyles that we are leading, and with all the knowledge that we have and all the gimmicks that we have and all the apps that we have in our mobile phone and all the knowledge that we have acquired from all these different books that we've read, to call ourselves non-entities is something quite heavy to understand, difficult to understand. So yeah, I mean, I just think that it's because many people, like for example, at the very start of ISKCON, there was a guest who visited 26 Second Avenue Temple, and he challenged Prabhupada. He said, look, in this Bhagavad Gita, this Krishna, he is inducing Arjun to fight, and I'm against war, I'm against violence, right? And Vietnam in those days. And Prabhupada sort of said, but you know, if you are a soldier, you have to fight. If you are a situation like Arjun, you have to fight. And then this gentleman said, no, I don't agree with you. And he just walked out. And he actually gave up the association of devotees from that point on, because he just didn't agree with the situation. So that's what I mean by extrapolating situations which are in the Shastras to apply in our modern life, in our own existence. Yeah. So, yeah, Krishna did this in the times of that were necessary in those days, but we are not in that situation, and we are not so important that we can even dream of being so close to Krishna like Arjun or like Yudhishthira.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Very helpful explanation. Shivamara Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Can you hear me?
Not
Yes.
too well.
Okay, I'm driving, so please
Yeah.
Okay.
bear with my voice. You can hear me?
Yes.
Driving your truck, huh?
Okay. Please accept my obeisances, all glory to the Prabhupada. All glory to that. Please, thank you very much, Prabhu. I feel like saying something to about whether anyone of us here would agree to disagree, who agree to fight with his uncle or relatives. So I think that question well, first is that if you are a devotee, if you are not born into Krishna consciousness and you have decided to become a devotee, surely not all your parents, not all your family members agree to it. So in one sense, you have already acted like Arjun by accepting to give up the family, whatever, faith, etc., in order to become a devotee. That is the first battle of Purusha for many of us today. And then the second point, Krishna told Arjun that there is no use to consider social conventions over spiritual truth or spiritual reality. That was Krishna's response to Arjun. Arjun was thinking that social conventions are very important. But Krishna told him there's still something more important than that. So social conventions may make us not to want to fight our relatives, our superior, but higher truth can oblige us. Yeah, in the face of truth, truth is superior to social conventions. So whether uncle, whether spiritual guide, as long as what they're standing for is not the spiritual truth, the higher truth, we should be ready to do that. That is the lesson of the Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, we have not really learned the lesson, and we're going to be victim of situation from time to time. But if we accept higher truth, spiritual truth, whatever is the situation, we will always emerge victorious, even if we're alone. That is why there's the adage, one with God is majority. And the Pandavas, they prove that also. So I don't agree with you, Prabhu, when you say that it's difficult to worship Krishna. Because I think this is the best. If there's going to be any, I think Idananda Mara was the one who said that many years back. That if you have to vote for the candidacy of God, Krishna will get my vote all the time. Krishna will always get our vote because he's the best and the easiest God to worship. So this is my feeling, and I just feel that I should express it. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Sri Acharya Prabhu, for sharing that. Yes. I don't know. Jayagurudev Prabhu, do you have something to say in regards to his contribution?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. However, we must understand also that the fact is that we are living in a world where absolute obedience to absolute authorities can lead to misunderstandings and can lead actually to situations which are unwanted. And therefore people are wary. I guess Sahadev Prabhu in this connection represents the wary people of following leaders in general. At the word, I understand Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he demands that we follow him, of course. But on the other hand, we are living in a world where this can be misunderstood, this kind of following absolute authorities, which can bring in a situation where people act sinfully just because they think that I have to obey these injunctions. I mean, you're devotees who have been living maybe sometime in Africa, or now you're living still or somewhere in the United States. I'm in the Czechoslovak or Czech Republic in the center of Europe, and we have had religious wars here, which were absolutely terrifying. And the priests from both sides, from the Protestant side and the priests from the Catholic side, or the authorities, let's say, in the name of Lord Jesus Christ and in the name of all the saints, waged incredible wars upon each other. Those, for example, who are following the Protestant faith, they murdered and killed the Catholics. Yeah, we have had situations like this also. You have had this in Rwanda in the late 20th century, where the tribes, the various tribes, were killing each other in the millions just because they were following some fanatical ideology. So I think Sahadev has a point in this fact that we are living at in our current situation, the Western civilization, or even in Africa, I must say, a situation where Kali Yuga has entered the minds of people, and following authorities sometimes can be when the authorities are not authorities, but they're demons, yeah, like Hiranyakashipu, or even worse. Then we may fall into the trap of obeying absolute authorities and creating and being sinful and very sinful. So people have this in mind. You know, information and history is taught at schools, and so many books have been published. So people are not stupid, you know. They have read these things, they have heard about these things. And whenever they hear that we're following blindly some authority, be it Krishna or or whatever, they kind of like become a little bit say reluctant to blindly go with us in this direction, and they may feel that, well, okay, beware, so that you don't create a situation as we have read or seen or witnessed in our countries or in our continents. So yeah, we have to be a little cautious, but in this connection, I think that we have an obligation to follow our spiritual master. And We are all fortunate, be you a disciple of Srila Prabhupada like I am, or I want to be, or a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, or a disciple of one of his godbrothers, I don't know. We have the great fortune to be under the care of great saintly personalities who, under no circumstances, would be cheating us or guiding us in the wrong direction to surrender to Krishna. And I have, in my whole life of being a devotee, that means now more than 50 years, I have never been confronted with things that my spiritual master was saying was wrong. However, and that is a fact, I have been following some authorities in the 80s, for example, who have led me to do or instructed me to do things which aftermath now I would not do if I wouldn't have been following in one way blindly their authority, and I regret it. But I don't have this reactions for that because they have instructed me wrongly, I would say. I don't get any reactions for that. They'll get the reactions for that. But in aftermath, I'm a little ashamed that I've done things that were not very, let's say, congenial or which were not very connected with Prabhupada's original idea. Yeah.
Oh, Prabhuji, thank you so much for this addition to Shivara Prabhu's comment. I feel very much elated because that is what I try to do in my own crazy life. That I try to learn the truth and I let the truth be my ultimate guide. Because, I mean, I've been saying this, especially in Africa, it is in our culture that husbands be respected, almost like worshipped by their wives, which is kind of varied, but some husbands abused and continue to abuse this privilege. And so that is caused some women to sometimes challenge their husbands. And they are right to challenge their husbands because the husband may be acting improperly. Same as elders. In African culture, everyone is brought up to respect and listen to their elders. Whatever the elders say, you just accept it. But some elders have also abused that privilege. And so in today's world in Africa, some people, lots of people, do not just listen to what elders say. They look for the truth in what the elders are telling them, which I think is very encouraging. So I'm grateful to Srila Prabhupada and to his disciples, the senior devotees, giving us this enlightenment. And we pray, like I was saying initially, that we never turn our back to Krishna, who is the absolute truth. If we just go by the absolute truth because Krishna represents the absolute truth, then we may suffer in an interim situation, but ultimately, the Supreme Lord is going to be pleased with us. So thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Maybe
I don't know.
A little
Okay,
comment? Can I have a little comment?
Yes, please go ahead.
Prabhupada once said, and that's also to a large extent my view, I don't know who is Krishna. I know who is Prabhupada. I don't know who is Krishna, but I know who is my spiritual master. And from this point of view, I'm safe.
Yes.
Because to think that I know Krishna, that's quite an idea. I mean, I don't know who is Krishna. I heard about Krishna from my Guru Maharaj, and I accept all the words that he wrote in his books and he said in his lectures, etc., but I don't know who is Krishna. I just know who is Prabhupada, who is my guru. And that for me is guiding my life since ever. And one little comment still is, once I was on Sankirtan in a monastery in Germany, and the chief abbot of the Catholic monastery, he took a Bhagavad Gita from me. He was a very nice gentleman. And he told me that the greatest judge from all our activities is our conscience, right? And our conscience dictate us to do things or not to do things. And Prabhupada many times insisted on the fact that conscience is the presence of the super soul in our heart. And we know we shouldn't do it, but we do it anyhow. That means that we have not obeyed the super soul. And if the super soul says, as I said before, in doubt, don't, right? The super soul tells us, don't beat your wife. Don't beat your wife. It's wrong. Don't yell at your wife. It's wrong. Don't mistreat your wife. It's wrong. But if we don't listen and we follow our own passions, our own illusory ideas that I'm so important and she's such a fool, then we are disobeying the Supreme Lord, and that's not so. So we should follow our conscience. That's a very important instruction.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Madhuvan, did you have something to say? I saw your hand up earlier, or it's been answered.
Yes, thank you. Dhanabad Pranams, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances, and thank you very much for being there for us. What I just want to discuss is this Krishna's propensity to fight. Although it is also beneficial to the devotees because he was able to prove himself as the champion of all the three worlds by defeating the greatest demons. But at the same time, there's a sports, this wrestling match. When we are young, I started seeing the sports. I was a bit skeptical. What kind of sport is this? Very violent. But after some time, it gained grounds, and many people are very much enthusiastic about the sports. And also sports like boxing also. And we even have world champions. They become very popular, very influential. So now, reading Bhagavatam, and I see that maybe it is endorsed by Krishna himself, the type of sports. So what do you have to say about that, Maharaj?
Oh, it's very simple. It's stated, Janmadyasya Jataha, that anything which is in us is originally in Krishna. So if we have the tendency to have wrestling, boxing, you have some kind of sports which are really like, boxing is still okay, but you have other sports where these two people fight with each other in a way which is like to death. There was, like in Africa, you had these things in the tribal fights. For example, I would like to see this also today, that the politicians who sit behind the big tables and dictate to the soldiers to go and bomb others and kill others, that they would go in a boxing match with each other, that the Ayatollah goes and fights with Trump in a fight.
That would be beautiful.
And who wins? He accepts defeat. I mean, if these politicians who are so clever that they can kill each other and have so many of their own citizens being murdered, killed, they should go and fight with each other like this, you know. But anyhow, what I mean to say is this tendency to fight and even the tendency to see horror films of, you know, people blood and all these things, they're originally in the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, they couldn't be in us. Anything which is in us is originally in the Supreme Lord. Janma jasya jataha. That's the version of the Vedas. Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Oh, Govinda, Prabhuji, our Garuda in modern day has a question. Govinda, Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sadi Prabhu.
Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna.
my respectful obeisances to you, my obeisances to the devotees, and thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Prabhu, I have two questions, but I'll make it very brief.
I don't think we have
Uh,
that much time, you know. I mean,
yes, okay. Yes, I'll make it very brief. How does the living entities have eternal relationship with the Lord? So this our relationship. How do we exercise it when we are there in the spiritual world? Does Krishna manifest according to our relationship and to give us that right to enjoy that rasa? I just want to make it brief. How do we exercise our relationship when we are in the spiritual world? Because I understand the living entities can assume anybody at all, any form to serve the Lord. But if we are to go by our relationship, how does the living entities exercise that? That will be question number one.
so the question number one, the answer is very simple. The spiritual master will tell you what your relationship with Krishna is. You have to depend on your spiritual master. You cannot go directly to Krishna. You have to go through your spiritual master.
Okay. Brief question, brief answer. So I would like you to expatiate more on that, but since I think we have limited time. So the second question would be Jai and Vijay were given the opportunity to decide how long they want to be in the material world. Is there any particular reason for that? When Krishna was to come to the planet, he asked the Devas to take birth and to help him perform his pastimes. So when he finished his pastime and he was living, all the Devas will have to go back. There was no condition to them. But Jaya and Vijaya came because of Krishna's desire. So if they have finished their pastime and to go back, then why giving them the condition, to choose whether to be here 3 times as demons or 7 times as devotees? I would like to know why. What is the reason behind that?
Because Jai and Vijay are very, very, very important person, VIP. Is that all right?
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
They're not ordinary persons, you know, Vijay and Jai. They were guardians in the Vaikuntha gate number 7, you know, which is one of the last gates before you enter the spiritual world. And they were so dear to Prabhupada, to Krishna. They were so dear to Krishna. You can't imagine, you know, how much love has Lord Narayan for Jai and Vijay. So much love for them, you know. They're very important persons. But they're not ordinary guardians like you have in front of the palaces. They're not what is it called? Bodyguards like the presidents have, you know. I mean, these are some kind of anonymous policemen, you know, that the bodyguards of the president or the prime ministers, they have their bodyguards. But Jai and Vijay, wow, they were very important personalities, not ordinary personalities. That you have to understand.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Prabhu.
Well, yeah, Prabhu, thank you very much. I understand the question, the answer given. But,
I know you have full of doubts.
yeah, because I know, you know, you will be very, very important, very special,
Yeah.
and all that. But Matthew Notako says, material world is not a place for gentlemen.
Right.
And so when all the great acharyas were asked to come, you know, wasn't easy. Right? Krishna said, just go, you know, I'll give you protection.
Exactly.
So that means that you may be a very great personality, but this place is very slippery.
Yeah.
And nobody want to come here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were asked to be come out 7 times as devotees.
Mhm.
Man, what are they doing here? 7
Yeah.
times as devotees. What are they doing when they can just immediately go back to their positions and enjoy their bliss?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. We thank you all so much. JAYAGURUDEVA Prabhu, like I was saying initially, that my apologies for bombarding your inbox because I
It's
was
okay. I was happy. I was happy to follow the conversation you had with my revered Garuda Prabhu.
Yeah. All right. So thank you all. Devotees, we're going to humbly request you all to unmute yourselves and we all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our deepest appreciation and gratitude to our beloved uncle and great uncle to some of us, His Grace JAYAGURUDEVA, for sharing wisdom all today as he usually does. Please, Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Hare.
Hare
Vajrakapa Tarunasya Kripa Sindhya Vachar Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
His Grace Jagaguru Prabhu Ki Jai.
Jai,
His confounder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai,
Antakoti Vaishnava Ki Jai.
Jai.
Glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.